I thought for a long time that I was a fixer, like I was a problem solver. That's what God had given me to do in life. And when I discovered all of a sudden that that wasn't what gave me meaning, it was a big turning point for me. And I consider it like an addiction. When I got to where life was supposed to be peaceful, I didn't accept that life could be peaceful. I didn't know how to handle peaceful. This is a humanity problem because society is constantly inundating us with all of this nonsense all of the time. And we've got to give ourselves permission to lay the burden down and find some healing for ourselves. What's up, everyone, and welcome to the Making Room podcast, where we clear out the clutter of our lives and make more room for God to move. I'm your host, Paul Radke, and it's awesome to have you with me today. I want to talk to you about a problem that I've had, and sometimes still have, and it's probably something that you've dealt with too. I'm venturing to bet that there's a fair amount of you that have dealt with this, and that is drama has seemed to follow you around like the plague. Like, no matter where you've been or what you've done or what job you are at or what relationship you are in, drama and conflict and problems just always seemed to be normal, to constantly be happening. And I remember looking back at life, and this is probably late teens, early 20s, and thinking, I don't think everybody lives this way. Like, I don't think everybody goes through this. What is it about my life that I just seem to attract this kind of nonsense all the time? And if it's not me that's in conflict or drama with somebody, then it's some other people that are in conflict and drama, and I'm there in the middle of it. And if it's not that, then there's something else that's inevitably going on. There's always a problem to solve. There's always dramatic things happening. There's always conflict that's surrounding me. And I was kind of bewildered. Like, is this just because of who I am? Like, did God just think so much of me that he gave me this kind of life? And it just didn't seem normal. It didn't seem right to me. And turns out it's not normal, and it's not healthy, and it's not right. And at first I was bitter and upset about it because I thought that, well, it's these people that I've surrounded myself with. Like, I've just got bad friends. I live in a bad place. I'm in a bad environment, and naturally in a bad environment, problems and drama and conflict are going to happen. So it's either I leave where I am right now and find new friends and family and churches, or I deal with it. And I kind of lived under that impression or that belief system for a while until one day. And to be honest, I couldn't even put my finger on exactly what happened. It was more just, it happened over time. I realized that it wasn't everybody else that was the problem. It was me. I had been the problem the whole time. And yes, there was drama around me a lot. And yes, there was conflict around me a lot. And there's always problems. Everybody's got problems and conflict. You know, it's normal to a degree. It's just not normal to live with it 24/7, to always be inundated with it. And I thought that was because of everybody else. But then I came to the epiphany, this great revelation that no, Paul, you're the problem. It's not drama that's attracted to you. It's you that's attracted to drama. It's you that's become attracted to problems and to conflict, not problems and conflict that are attracted to you. And I think to understand the depth of these kind of issues, you've really got to go back to the root. And so for my life, if we go back to the root of where I believe that this stuff came from, I think that I've got to go back to early childhood. I've got to go back to growing up. Many of you know, because I've said it before, that I grew up in a pastor's home. So I'm a preacher's kid. And I think that this is something that a lot of preachers' children deal with. And I would venture to say that most of us that grew up in pastors' homes deal with this sort of issue, because when you grow up in a pastor's house, you're constantly inundated with drama and conflict and problems. And it comes in so many different forms. And it's not like we've got bad parents in all situations or anything. And it's not like we're at bad churches. It's just kind of the nature of the position that our parents hold and that a lot of us wind up growing up to hold that creates this environment where drama becomes the normal. It just becomes the norm in our lives. And it shows up in a lot of different forms. It shows up in people that need help. People come to church and they're looking for spiritual guidance through pain. They're looking for guidance through their own trauma and their own illnesses and their own family conflicts. And they go to their spiritual leader, which is normal. They would go to their pastor, something like that. And they get guidance. And they speak about what they're going through and the problems that they're facing. And the pastor, does their best to guide them through it and give spiritual guidance and pray with them. But as a pastor's kid, you are present for a lot of this stuff that is going on. You're present for a lot of other people's difficulty that is happening. And although it may not be told directly to you, and your parents may not even tell you, you're just there to witness it. And you're there for the phone conversations, and you're there for the long talks, and you're there for before and after service. And because your parents are always being approached by people with problems, and you are always there observing people and problems and resolving these things and witnessing your parents do their best to walk people through it, it becomes normal to you. Like, this is life. This is what happens. And you learn how to read a room, you learn how to read tension, you learn a lot about people and mannerisms and stuff like that just because you're around it so much. And there's no greater teacher than your surroundings. We learn a lot just by the environments that we're in, good and bad. And so you have that problem, but then it continues to go deeper in that, so your dad or your mom's the pastor, and there's conflict in the church. There's different staff members that have conflict, and they go to the pastor over it. There's people in the church that have conflict, and they go to the pastor over it. And so you're not only dealing with people's problems and life situations and trauma, but then you're also hearing all of this bickering back and forth and witnessing your parents try to resolve conflict between two other parties. And so that becomes normal. Another layer of problem solving. Not only are you praying with people and walking with people through their life circumstances, but you're also trying to, reconcile two parties and their infighting and conflict that's going on there. And then you go another layer than that, and you've got external criticism coming from, in our case, few hundred people, 500-600 people at the height, I think, criticizing. They don't like this, they don't like that, they don't like the way your dad or your mom said this, or the way they sang that, or they don't think they should be doing this. And everybody's got an opinion about you and your family and what they should and shouldn't be doing. And so there's this, you're helping everybody through their own problems, and then you're helping people that are close to you through their own conflict with one another, and then you're dealing with the criticism of people that don't like this and don't like that about you and your family. And then you go another layer deeper, and you've got family conflict. And everybody that has a family has families that fight, because that's a normal part of life. But when you add it in with all of these other factors, for preachers' kids, and it's not just preachers' kids, it's politicians' kids, and anybody that's in the public eye, their children are going to experience this to a degree. Anybody that's got a business, to a degree, they're going to experience this on some level, because conflict and problems are a big part of life, and it's normal to deal with them. But when you're a child, and that's all you tend to see, right? You just tend to see the big things, the big dramas and conflicts and problems, roll out on a daily basis and a weekly basis and a yearly basis, and you grow up in that, it becomes the norm. It becomes what you are used to seeing. It becomes what life is. Life is about problem solving. Life is about conflict resolution. Life is about being in dramatic situations and muscling your way through it. And for me, and everybody responds to that in different ways. Me and my brother Christian, went through that same kind of process, but we both handled it differently. And he's way more easygoing and doesn't seem to deal with this attraction to drama like I have. At least we haven't really talked about it, but it just doesn't appear that he deals with that the same way I do. But I took on a different method, and you see that in siblings a lot, that one will respond one way to growing up in the same family, and the other one responds a whole different way. So I responded in a way that it became that drama and problems and solving them was what brought purpose. It's what brought meaning to my life, because that's what it just looked to me like that's what my parents did for a living. Like, yeah, they sang and they preached and they did ministry, and yeah, that was great. I saw all that stuff, but daily life, it looked more like conflict resolution and problem solving and dealing with drama, both external and internal. And so I thought that problems and conflict and solving them were what you were supposed to do. Like that's your purpose. That's what your meaning is in life. And I talked a little bit about this before, in that I thought for a long time that I was a fixer. Like I was a problem solver. That's what God had given me to do in life, was when there's a problem, Paul, you step in because you're capable, because you can learn new things, because you can get in the mud and try your best to bring resolution. That's what you do. So whenever there's a problem, you get involved in it because it's part of your purpose. It's part of what gives you meaning. And when I discovered all of a sudden that wasn't what gave me meaning, it was a big turning point for me. It's still a big turning point for me as I continue to walk it out. And I consider it like an addiction, because when you're addicted to substance or something, even once you get off of that substance and you're no longer on it, be it alcohol or drugs or whatever, they tell you still identify as an addict because it can always sneak back up on you. And you always need to be on guard to not fall back into that addictive pattern. And that's kind of how my relationship with drama and conflict is that it became an addiction for me, and that I have to constantly be on guard not to fall back into the pattern of addiction that I once had. And it's kind of, I would relate it to this, is that there's this thing that happens when you go on a road trip and you get on the interstate and you're going 80 miles an hour for hours, right? Me and Madison, well, I like going to the beach. Madison goes to humor me. She goes to, enjoy a peaceful, relaxing environment, but she's not one for sand. So I love going to the beach. We go to Florida or Orange Beach or something like that once a year at least. And we get on the interstate and we're going 80 miles an hour from New Orleans all the way to Alabama or Florida, whatever beach we're going to. And then once you get closer to the destination, you inevitably have to turn off of the interstate, and you hit these darn highways where they drop the speed limit to 55, 45, 35. And, that's where the cops love to sit, right? Right off the interstate, the speed limit drops to 45 from 70. And yeah, I did say I go 80, but just shut up. So you're going at 80 miles an hour. The speed limit all of a sudden drops to 45, and it feels like you're moving like molasses. Like it feels like you could not possibly be going any slower. And why is the speed limit so slow? Why am I moving at a snail's pace? I'm ready to get to my destination. And that's kind of how I correlate this addiction to drama for me in a way, is that I lived life on the interstate going 80 miles an hour and always drama, always conflict, always problems, always seeing these dramatic situations play out. And I took it on as kind of a personal thing. And so I'm going at 80, and then all of a sudden life makes a turn and the speed limit drops to 45, and it is a complete shock. It's a feeling like your skin is crawling. Like, what on earth is going on? Why is life feeling this way? This is not normal. This is not how I should be feeling. And so I kept my foot on the gas. I kept going at 80 miles an hour, even though the speed limit had changed And even though I shouldn't have been going. And what happens when you're going 80 in a 45 and the cop pulls you over, right? You get in trouble, you get a ticket, you get into all kind of more drama that was not necessary had you just obeyed the speed limit sign that was out. And that's pretty much what life looked like for me. I was going 80 and we turned off the interstate, got on the highway, speed limit dropped. I kept going at 80 because that's what felt normal to me. And I got in a bunch of trouble for it. I got involved in a lot of conflict that didn't need to happen. I got involved in a lot of problems that I had no business trying to solve. I got involved in all kind of drama and all kind of things that, there were real circumstances and some of them were very important, but they weren't mine. And I didn't have to get involved in them. But because I had grown so accustomed to that way of life and I had taken that on to be so personal, when I got to where life was supposed to be peaceful, I didn't accept that life could be peaceful. I didn't know how to handle peaceful, right? We speak about in churches the Prince of Peace and the peace that passes all understanding. But what happens when peace feels like worse than the drama? What happens when peace feels like you're just ready to bust out of a shell? You can't wait to get out of this environment because it is so different than the environment you're used to. And we have done that in society. We have done that in churches. If you're a pastor's kid, you probably relate to this a lot. But we have grown so accustomed to life being in drama and in conflict and in problems that we don't even like peace anymore. We don't even know how to have peace. We don't even know how to handle where the speed limit drops down to a level that makes us uncomfortable because it's not what we're used to. And so life for me, when I came to the realization that, the problem isn't everybody else. The problem isn't the cop that pulled me over because I was speeding. The problem is I was speeding. The problem isn't that everybody's got problems or there's conflict all the time or that there's things that need solving all the time. The problem is that I took it on to be personal, that I took it on that even when life was supposed to have peace and even when this was supposed to be a time of laying back and healing from past hurts and traumas, I kept my foot on the gas to keep finding problems and to keep solving conflict and to keep pushing forward because it felt like that's what I was supposed to do. It felt like that problems were purpose. Problems were what gave me meaning, and solving them is what gave me meaning. And I think that if you look at society as a whole right now, you'll see it's not just a problem that I have, but it's a problem that is at large with a lot of people and with everybody at this point to some degree. Our churches are inundated with conflict all the time about stuff that doesn't really matter. Our social media, Facebook and Instagrams and TikToks are filled with conflict and problems and situations all the time. The news is always problems and problems and drama and drama and drama and drumming up things to be bigger than what they really are. And we're constantly inundated with things that are wrong, with things that aren't quite right, and things that need our input, things that need our solving, things that need our opinions. And we were not meant to live life like that. We were not meant to live life in constant drama, constant weight, constant burden, constant just unable to rest. We all need time to sit back and relax and heal and rest and process things that we've been through. And it's like working out, right? If you go in to the gym, it's good to have resistance. It's good to have weight. It builds muscle. It's a positive thing. It's a healthy thing. And that's a healthy thing in life. Working through problems, learning how to resolve conflict, all good things. But if you live under constant physical weight, and if I have an extra 200 pounds I'm carrying around all the time, my body is going to have a really hard time compensating for that. And it's going to cause a lot of physical problems for me if I constantly live with these 200-pound weights on my shoulders, walking around like everything's fine. And we understand that with our physical bodies, and we would obviously say, well, just put down the weight. But in our internal lives, we seem to have a problem grasping that because we walk around with these heavy weights all of the time. And we feel like if we don't carry this heavy weight, then who will carry it? And we feel like if we're not the one who carries this weight, then it won't get carried. And what's going to happen if I don't solve the problem or if I don't bring resolution to the conflict? What's going to happen if I don't step in and get in this dramatic situation and try and bring some, what I consider peace? What's going to happen if I don't keep on carrying this around? And while we do that, we are just overloading our central nervous system. We're overloading our soulish, our mind, will, and emotions. We're overloading our entire internal lives, and it's causing major mental, emotional damage. This is why we have such a mental health crisis right now in America. This is why we have such spiritual crisis in the church right now, is that we are all carrying around these heavy burdens and heavy weights, refusing to put them down, because if we don't do it, who's going to do it? And it is causing us to be so overloaded and so overextended. And because we never take time to set the burdens down and set the weight down and sit back and rest, just like we would need to do with our physical bodies, we don't take the time to sit down and let our mind, will, and emotions heal from the tension and from the weight they've been carrying, right? Tension and weight and going through that positive thing, it's going to happen in life. You've got to learn how to deal with it, because in this world you will have trouble. Jesus told us that. So you're going to have trouble and drama and conflict and problems, and you've got to learn how to deal with those things. But you also need to learn how to lay those things down and rest and allow yourself to recover from the things that you've been through. Allow yourself to recover from the tension that you've been holding, from the weight that you've been carrying, from the relationship that you've been trying to fix. You've got to give yourself time to just sit back and rest. If the body doesn't get sleep and if the body doesn't get rest, then it just continues to get worse. There's nothing that will make you more unhealthy more rapidly than not getting sleep and not getting rest. It's the quickest way to death, is to never get sleep, right? So if we take that and we align it with not just our external bodies, but our internal lives that need that rest. And we see that it's not just my physical man that needs rest, but it's my spiritual man, it's my emotional man, it's my mind that needs rest. I have to find a way to calm down, to get into a place of peace, because it's in that place of peace that I find rest. It's in that place of peace that I am restored and get healing from all of the weight and tension that I've been carrying previously. And this is a big part of who Jesus is in my life and who Jesus is in a lot of your lives. He says, "Come to me, all of you that are heavy laden, and I will give you rest," right? He says, "Come and lay your burdens, cast all of your anxieties on me, for I care for you." He's a God that desires to give us rest, desires and makes available the opportunity to lay down our problems at his feet and get some rest and some healing for ourselves. And it's time that we give ourselves permission to go through that. And for me, I didn't give myself permission because I felt worthless if that's what I did. If I wasn't solving this problem or resolving this conflict or involved in this drama, then life had no meaning and I had no purpose. And if I had no meaning or purpose, then what am I doing here? Like, why do I even bother? Why am I even here if I don't have meaning and purpose? And man, it's been a journey of healing. It's been a journey getting to this point of being able to look back and say, man, a lot of that was weird circumstances and stuff that you shouldn't have had to go through, Paul. But a lot of it was stuff that you brought on yourself because you just got used to going so fast in life. You got used to going 80, and when life tried to give you 45, you just weren't having it. You were not accepting that the speed limit of life had changed. And I think a lot of us can relate to that. I think a lot of us can relate to that, yeah, my life has been really dramatic up until this point, and it's not all my fault. It's not that I brought it all on myself, but there's lots of it that I did bring on myself. And there's lots of it that it wasn't my problem to solve. And it wasn't somebody criticizing me that I needed to step in and do something. It wasn't my thing that I needed to get involved in. It wasn't my drama that I needed to get involved in. I could have let it go. I could have just let them deal with their conflict. I didn't have to get involved in it. I was not responsible for getting involved in it. I was not helpful for getting involved in it, right? So a lot of these things where I felt like I had to get involved, I wasn't even really being helpful. It was just, in some cases, making it worse that I was trying to stick my nose in it, but I just had this sense that that's what I was meant to do. That's what I had to do. And man, we need healing in the church from this. We need healing in society from this. This is a humanity problem at this point because society is constantly inundating us with all of this nonsense all of the time. And we've got to give ourselves permission to lay the burden down, to lay it at Jesus' feet and get some rest for ourselves and find some healing for ourselves. And for me, there was kind of a process that I've gone through, that I'm going through, that I'll continue to go through. And that is, first, I couldn't do anything until I identified that there was a problem, right? That's the first step in fixing any problem. It is admitting that the problem exists. So admitting to yourself, me admitting to myself that I am the one that's attracted to drama and situations. It's not situations and drama that are chasing after me. I'm chasing after them. When I came to that realization and I identified that I was the problem, it changed everything for me, because if I'm the problem, then I'm also the solution, right? As long as everybody else is the problem, then everybody else has to change so that I can rest, so that I can find peace. But when I'm the reason I don't have peace and I can't rest, then I'm also the solution to that problem. I can also fix it to where I can find peace and can find rest. And so admitting that you have a problem and identifying that, yeah, this is a situation for me. This is something that I've grown to think of as normal. That's not normal, and it's unhealthy for me. So that was kind of my first step is, all right, I've identified what it is. Second step is that I've got to go back and hopefully find where some of this methodology came from. Where did my mentality originate? Where did I get the idea that I was supposed to be a problem solver and a fixer? Where did I get the idea that this is how life was supposed to be and this is what was supposed to give me purpose and meaning? And for that, like I said, a lot of it stemmed back to how I grew up and the environment in which I grew up and how I responded to that environment. And just identifying where the root came from. And that's just one root. And you continue to find roots and things that go deeper and more reasons why you are addicted to drama and to problems. And I've found even more than that, but these are the ones you get in today. So that was where I focused, and I discovered that, okay, this is why I felt the way I did. I had to forgive myself for feeling that way. I had to forgive the people that I was surrounded by. I had to forgive my parents in some cases. I had to forgive church members in some cases that made me think that this is what life was supposed to be. And I had to really, through a system of prayer and relationship with God, but also, and this is, I don't want to call it equally as important, because there's nothing more important than your relationship with God. But you also have to understand that how you relate to people is going to dictate how you relate to God in a lot of ways. And so almost as equally as important as my relationship with God and God being with me and walking me through some of these things was my relationship with people and being in relationships that spoke into my life and could see things that I couldn't see. And one of those invaluable people has been Madison, who has been able to help me and identify things in me that I needed to work on. And I didn't always like it and didn't always appreciate what she said. But when you find truth, you need to rejoice over it, not lament over it. And when people speak to you something and they identify maybe a flaw in your character and they identify something that you can't see, the immediate gut reaction is often to just reject it and say, "Man, get out of here, like you're being ridiculous." But if you take the time to be curious about why they feel that way, why do they see this in you? Why do they think that you're a drama queen, right? You can be upset that they called you a drama queen, or you can be curious as to, okay, why do you think that? And listen and hear them out as to why they think they consider you a drama queen. Maybe they just find you abrasive. Be curious about why they find you abrasive. And be curious about why people that are close to you see you the way that they do. Why do you think that I am this way? Ask those people those questions, because they're going to tell a story. They're going to say circumstances that they were in with you and how you responded to those circumstances. And you can use that as a way to blow them off and say they're ridiculous or they're wrong or you misunderstand. Or you can look at yourself in the mirror and say, maybe there's a point to that. And that person may not understand why. They may not understand the trauma you've been through or the circumstances in life that you had to deal with that kind of created that mentality in you. And it's really not as important that they do understand that. It's important that you understand it. And you kind of get to the root and say, okay, yes, I am a drama queen. I've got to deal with that. I am abrasive. I've got to deal with the fact that I start petty arguments over stupid things, right? It's something that I've done. It's something that I do sometimes. And I've got to go through the process of trying to heal and stop doing that, because it's not a characteristic that I want to have. It's not something that I want to say, oh yeah, Paul, yeah, he's abrasive. That's not something I want to identify with. And so I have to hear people out, and I've heard people out, and I've got to identify where that problem maybe came from. And as I walk through that process with other people, with God, and a prayer life, and in some circumstances, you may need a therapist as well, or a counselor, or a psychiatrist. I've not had formal therapy. I've had a lot of spiritual guides that have been with me and walked me through some really difficult times in life and have opened my eyes to things that I couldn't see. So it was a type of therapy, but I'm actually looking at even going deeper and getting with somebody that's really trained and going deeper with a therapist. And you may need that too, to really get deep into the root of some of these issues. But committing to identifying these things and then not being upset and rejecting the truth when you hear it, but accepting the truth and saying, getting somewhat excited about it. Like me and Madison just had a talk the other night, and she shared with me a truth that I did not enjoy hearing at all. I didn't want to hear it. I didn't enjoy hearing it. I still don't like the idea of it. But there's a part of me that's excited because I know it's true. And as long as we are living a lie, and as long as we are in this cycle of frustration and problems and drama, and we don't understand why, then we're just going to stay in those cycles. But when the truth is revealed, it says in Scripture, the truth shall set you free. It's not something to lament. It's not something to get angry over, but it's actually something to rejoice in and saying, yeah, I'm the problem. And if I'm the problem, then I can be the solution. I don't have to wait for somebody else to solve it for me. I can start solving it for myself right now. And so just identifying that there's a problem, getting to a place where you can identify some of the roots of those problems, and you may not be able to get to all of them by yourself. You're gonna need outside help. You're gonna need a good relationship with God for sure, but you're gonna need a good relationship with people. And you may need a good relationship with a professional to get deep into these issues and start bringing up the roots, because as long as you just pull a weed from the top, it just keeps coming back up, right? You've got to get to the root of the weed, and when you pull out the root, the weed stops regrowing. And that's the same thing we've got to do in our soulish realm, is we've got to stop just, cutting the grass and pulling out the weeds from the top, but we've got to get in there and pull out the root of the problem, pull this thing out from the source and identify the source and start dealing with it right there. And as we do that, it's going to be a process that we're going to have to commit to. Just like I was talking about addiction earlier, a lot of this resembles that, and that it's not something that just goes away. The addiction to drama and addiction to problem solving is not something that's just going to go away from me, but it's actually something that I've got to commit to confronting over and over, time and time again. And yes, it gets easier with time. And yes, sometimes I'm going to mess up and have messed up and will mess up. But if I just commit to continuing to deal with the problem, my life has gotten so much better. I mean, I can't even tell you just the amount of healing and wholeness that comes from identifying this stuff and starting to deal with the root of it. There's such a freedom that washes over you that you think that, I'll get freedom as soon as I solve a problem. But when you really get free, there can be problems all around you and you're still as free as can be. You can have conflict surrounding you and problems surrounding you, and life's going to be full of that sometimes. But when you find the freedom that Jesus provided, when you find true freedom, when you find true truth, it is not something that just goes away when a problem passes your way. It's not something that just, whoop, there it goes when something happens again. It's something that sticks with you. And yeah, I've got to really focus sometimes on, Paul, that's not an argument you need to start. I've got to focus on, dude, you just need to shut your mouth because this is not a fight worth having. This is not drama that you need to be involved in. This is not conflict that you need to add your 2 cents to. There's sometimes that I've got to really bite my tongue to stay out of it. This is not somebody that you need to correct. This is not somebody, this is not something that is your problem to solve. And just bite your tongue and hold your peace and wait, and it'll pass, right? Bite your tongue, hold your peace, and peace will come, and joy will come, and healing will come when we stop inundating ourselves with the same bad patterns and we start to handle our own stuff. That's when healing starts. It doesn't start with everybody else. It starts with me. Dealing with a life of frustration and a life of drama and a life of problems doesn't start with everybody else. It starts with me. Will I go through the work, go through the effort to dig in, to identify that I am the problem? These are kind of the situations that brought on the problem. And these are the things that are going to help me solve the problem. If I can just commit to, if I've got a drama addiction, probably a bad thing for me is going on Facebook and finding somebody that's got a gripe and complain about something and then reading every comment about, I'm kind of just perpetuating the problem, right? I'm fulfilling the drama addiction in a different way. It's probably not good for me to sit down and watch a lot of reality TV where there's a lot of drama going on because it just brings up those bad patterns. Just like it's probably not healthy for the severe alcoholic to go sit in a bar and constantly hang out a bar every night. That's just probably not the best environment to keep you from falling back into that addiction. We've got to be aware as people that are emotionally scarred and wounded in various ways, not to go back into situations that perpetuate that sort of behavior and activity in us. And we've got to feel free enough to insulate ourselves and protect ourselves to be at peace. Sometimes you need to be alone. Sometimes you need to be in the quiet. You don't always need noise going. And if you have a problem where you can't be in quiet without it really getting to you, then I want you to consider that you probably have some things, some traumas, some patterns that you've not identified and you haven't started to work through yet. And even once you identify it, you're gonna feel that way, right? Even once I know the speed limit's 45 when I turn off the interstate, it still feels completely wrong. It feels like a fish out of water. It feels like I need to be going so much faster. But the longer I go at 45, the more my body acclimates and the more normal it feels. And we've got to do the same thing in life, is that we're not just continue to go 80 even when the speed limit changes, but we adapt with the speed limit. We slow down and we allow that new sense of normal, that new healthy way of living to take root. And it doesn't happen in an instant. It doesn't happen overnight. It happens over time. And the longer you do it, the better you're going to get at it, the more normal it's going to feel, until one day you're going to look back and you're going to wonder, how did I even get to this place? How did I even get to a place of feeling so at peace? How did I even get to a place of feeling so free? How did I get to a place that somebody can criticize me and I don't take it to heart and I don't spend all night crying about it and complaining about it? And how did I get to a place that, there's all of this drama going on, but I am insulated from it? And yeah, I can help when I'm able to help. And yeah, I can get involved if I have something good and healthy to add, but I don't have to get involved. And I don't have to be inundated with their drama and with their conflict all the time. And I don't have to start petty arguments just to prove that I know things or that I'm right about things. Sometimes I could just let people be wrong because they want to be wrong. Not everybody, people don't want to be corrected all the time. Some people would just rather live the lie and live with their incorrect idea. And we've got to be okay with that. That is not on us, that is on them. Jesus didn't go around confronting everybody that argued with him constantly. He had dedicated times where he confronted Sadducees and Pharisees, but there are also times in Scripture where they're present, but Jesus isn't confronting them. He's just teaching on a broad basis. And we need to have that same sort of view sometimes, is just because somebody's wrong, one, doesn't mean that you're right. And two, that's a big one. It doesn't mean that you're right. And two, it doesn't mean that it's your job to correct them, right? If that ain't your kid, leave that kid alone. I mean, and unless the kid's about to harm themselves or harm somebody else, that ain't your business. And if they're screaming, that's their parents' job to correct them. Don't get involved in other people raising their kids. Don't get involved in somebody else trying to raise their kids and how they're doing it. I don't care if you think it's wrong the way they're doing it. It's none of your business, right? And we've got to take on that same mentality in life, and that it's not our business sometimes. And we've just got to let it go. We've got to walk on. We've got to live in the peace and the freedom that God has provided for us. We've got to allow ourselves, our mind, will, and emotions to relax and to heal and to process the traumas that we've been through, so that when other problems come up, and they will, and other conflicts take place, and they will, we are more prepared to handle them because we're healthy, because we're rested, because we're able to get in there and work out again, because we didn't work out 24/7 for a whole week, but because we worked out for an hour and we went home and rested. And then we went back and we worked out again. We've got to give ourselves time to rest and recover from the situations that have happened in life. And so I want to give you freedom today. I want to give you permission today. If you don't feel like you've had permission, I want to let you know that you have permission to take a break and to rest from all of the problems that life is throwing at you. And yeah, some of us are going to be in situations where that's not a possibility right now, right? I've been in situations where it wasn't a possibility to rest. I had something to deal with that was life or death, and I had to deal with it. And that happens. But there's a lot of times, and most of the time, it was not life and death. It was not something that demanded my attention at that moment. And I needed to give myself time to let it go and to rest and to process things that have happened, things that are currently happening, so that I could be a more whole, complete, full version of myself to go in and handle that tension once again. I liken it to this example, is that it's like I was a boat captain, and I was in charge as the captain. I was in charge of setting the destination, of setting the course, of setting the speed. I was in charge of where life was headed. I was in charge of the boat. But then the boat sprung a leak. And so I got in the bottom of the boat and I plugged the leak. But then another one and another one and another one and another one popped up, till all of a sudden there's just leaks sprouting out everywhere. And I go into full work mode, and I'm plugging all of these holes, and I'm patching all of the places where the boat is leaking, and I'm making sure that the boat doesn't sink, and I'm bailing out the water, and I'm doing everything that needs to be done to make sure that the boat is a safe place to be. And then after I patched every hole and I bailed out all of the water, I sat down in the hull of the boat, and I just waited and waited and waited for another leak and for another problem. I waited for another hole in the boat that I needed to plug, because I'd had all of these holes that needed plugging. And I got to the point where I thought my job was to come in and plug all the holes and make sure the boat doesn't sink. And even when there wasn't a problem, I sat and I waited for the problem. And the whole problem with that is that I was the captain, not the deckhand. I was in charge of setting the course of where life was headed and how fast we were getting there and what route we were taking to get there. And instead of focusing on my job as captain to make sure the boat was getting where it needed to go, even once all of the problems were solved, I sat in the hull of the boat and waited for more problems because problems became purpose. And we are like that captain. We are like that captain that we've had problems that demanded our attention. It was right for the captain to get in the bottom of the boat and plug up all the holes that needed plugging because the boat was about to sink. And if the boat sinks, we're not going anywhere, right? But as captain, I've got to be constantly aware that it's not my job just to plug up holes. That's something that I had to do because there was a problem that needed solving. But now the problem's solved. Now the boat's no longer sinking. And I've got to remember that I'm not meant to be in the hull, but I'm meant to be on deck. I'm meant to be up there determining where this boat is headed. I'm up there meant to determine where life is headed, what route I'm going to use to get there, what speed I'm going to go at. And yes, God is with me to guide me. God is with me to help make sure I get to the right destination and go to the right route at the right speed. He's with me all of the time, but I've got to take personal responsibility to understand that if I just sit in the bottom of the boat waiting for more problems, then my ship is never going to get to where it needs to go. My life is never going to get to the destination that it needs to go if I'm just waiting for more problems to solve. I've got to get back in charge of my own life. You've got to take back control of your life. And yeah, there's problems that have demanded your attention, but now those problems are solved and you've got to chill out, recover from all of the work you just had to do, plugging up those holes. Recover from all of that pressure and from all of that weight and from all of that strain that it put on you in every way, physically, spiritually, emotionally. You've got to let yourself rest. But once you've rested, you can't just sit at the bottom of the boat waiting for more problems. You've got to get out the bottom of the boat. You've got to get up on deck and you've got to start charting your course again. You've got to start saying, this is where I'm headed. This is where I want to be. This is the route I'm going to use to get there. This is how fast I feel like I can go to get there. And always let God be with you and guide you in all of those decisions. But it's you. You're the one. You're the one that's been chosen to chart your life. You're the one that's been chosen to manage where you're headed in life. And I want to encourage you, if you were like me, am like me, and that you were so addicted to problems and drama that you have lost track of what your real purpose was. You've lost track that you were never meant, that was not your purpose to be down fixing problems. Your purpose was to be charting a course to the destiny that God had given you. I want to encourage you that you can do the work and you can get out of that place. You can get out of that addiction to drama and criticism and all of the things that we inundate ourselves with. You can get out of that place and you can start to be who God's called you to be because He's already put that power in you. You're not waiting on Him to dig you out of a pit. He's already there. He's already dug you out. He's already provided freedom. He's already provided victory. He's already done everything that needs doing. All we need to do is the work that takes to grab hold of the ladder and climb out of the pit. Grab hold of the ladder and climb out of the hull of the boat. Because it's not where we're meant to be. You were not meant to live life in the pit. You are not meant to live life down in the bottom of the boat fixing problems. You are meant to be up at the top, guiding where you're supposed to be going in life. Setting a course and saying, this is where I want to be and this is where I'm going to go. You can do it. You can do it with the help of friends, with family, professional help. You can do it with the help of the Holy Spirit. Do not underestimate the Holy Spirit's power to reveal things to you that you didn't know before. When I have gone to the Holy Spirit and said, Lord, reveal to me the root of this issue, He has always been faithful to show up and to show me some of the things that I needed to handle so that I could progress even further. And it doesn't happen all at once. It happens little by little by little. You don't get to your cruise destination just immediately once you get on the boat. It takes a process. It takes hours to get from here down to Cozumel when I'm on a cruise. It doesn't just happen instantly. And we've got to get used to process being normal. We've got to get used to life is not supposed to go at 80, and it's fine to go at 45, 35 sometimes. It's fine to get healing. It's fine to get rest. It's fine to relax. It's okay. It's okay. Life's not going anywhere, right? God is still able. It says in Scripture that he who started a good work is faithful and just to bring it to completion. So if God started a good thing in you, he's able to bring it to completion as well. Just give yourself time to heal, relax and de-stress and allow your emotions to calm down from all of the pressure they've been under so that when you get back on deck and you start charting a course for life, you're more healthy, more happy, and more whole than you've ever been before. Thank you so much for watching. I appreciate you all so much for consistently listening to the podcast, for all of your support. Some of you have been so generous as to donate and to help support it financially. Man, that is just, I can't tell you how much it means to me that this means so much to you that you would donate something financially to support it. So thank you all so much for your love and support and comments and likes and hearts and all of those things. I love you all so much. I appreciate you watching, and I look forward to being with you next week. Peace out.